welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent us some really interesting stuff, articles looking at the costs of market research, and maybe more importantly, when does that spending actually pay off? So
Exactly.
our goal today is to really dig through this. We want to help you figure out when putting money into market research is, a smart move for your business.
And how to get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, exactly. Maximize that investment. And maybe even find some clever, budget-friendly ways to get the insights you need without that huge price tag.
Right. We've been looking at this overview from Cognitive Market Research, and it's pretty clear just how many things can actually push up the cost. It's not always obvious.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like it's, well, a lot more involved than just, say, sending out a few online surveys.
Oh, definitely.
One of the first things that jumps out is hiring those professional research firms. I mean, they clearly bring serious expertise, but it sounds like that comes at a pretty significant cost. Why is that exactly?
Well, the article points to a few key things. You've got the consultancy fees themselves, obviously. Then there's the time and the resources they need to generate these really detailed reports, sometimes hundreds of pages.
Oh, hundreds.
Yeah. And then, just the general overhead these firms carry. So if you're looking for really specific answers, that tailored approach is valuable. But yeah, it definitely comes with a premium.
Okay. And then there's the actual data. You can't just whip up market insights out of thin air, can you?
Yeah.
It seems like buying those really specific proprietary data reports, the ones focused on maybe a niche market, that can also be a major expense. We're talking thousands for just one report sometimes.
That's right. And what's interesting there is the trade-off. These reports can give you incredibly focused information that's true.
Hmm.
But as the article points out, they often provide just a snapshot, a picture of the market at one specific moment in time.
Like a photograph.
Exactly. So you really need to weigh whether that single, potentially very expensive data point is more valuable than maybe doing smaller, more frequent things yourself, things that might give you a more dynamic, ongoing understanding.
That's a really good way to put it, a single frame versus the whole movie. The article also gets into how the complexity of the research methods themselves really affects the cost.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether it's, those in-depth focus groups or big quantitative surveys, each seems to have its own cost drivers. Let's maybe start with the qualitative stuff. What makes focus groups and interviews potentially pricey?
Okay, so for qualitative research, a big chunk of the cost is finding and paying skilled facilitators, people who can really guide those conversations effectively.
Right, that's a skill.
It really is. Then there's the cost of recruiting the right participants, people who fit specific criteria for your target audience. That can be tricky and expensive.
Finding the right people, yeah.
And finally, analyzing all that rich, unstructured data you get from interviews or focus groups. That takes a lot of time and often needs specialized expertise. It's not just reading comments.
Gotcha. And then on the other side, the quantitative side, those big surveys,
Yeah.
what are the key expenses there? It's got to be more than just clicking send on SurveyMonkey, right?
Oh, absolutely. First, you need to make sure you have a statistically sound sample size if you want to draw meaningful conclusions. That might mean using sophisticated sampling techniques or even paying for access to larger panels of respondents.
Okay.
Then you've got the costs tied to the technology or the tools you use for data collection. And crucially, you need the expertise for statistical analysis, to find the real patterns and not get fooled by just random noise in the data.
So it sounds like the more complex or widespread your research needs are, like if you need to cover multiple countries or track trends over a long time, those logistics and translation costs can really start to pile up too.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you expand the scope, you naturally add complexity. Coordinating across different regions means managing teams, understanding cultural nuances, accurate translations.
All adds up.
Exactly. And longer research periods just mean sustained resource use, more potential for things to go sideways. It all contributes to the bottom line.
Okay, so we're seeing how market research can become a pretty substantial investment. But let's flip the coin now. When might that investment actually fall short? When does the ROI just not justify the cost?
That's a really critical question. The article brings up a key scenario. When the research gives you very broad, very general results.
Okay.
Think about it if you're investing because you need to understand your specific customers' preferences or how to position your product uniquely. Well, a generic report on overall industry trends might just not give you the focused insights you actually need.
Right, that makes perfect sense. It's like asking for directions to your specific street and getting a map of the whole country. Not very helpful right then. Another potential issue seems to be getting outdated information. The market moves so fast now, timely data seems critical.
Absolutely critical. What was true even just a few months ago could be totally different today. Consumer habits shift, new tech emerges, competitors react.
Mm.
If your data isn't current, you're basically making decisions based on the past. That makes a research investment pretty ineffective, and it could even lead you down the wrong path entirely.
And okay, even if you get great up-to-date insights, it sounds like it can all be for nothing if you don't have the right people or, the internal setup to actually understand and act on that information.
That's a huge point. If you lack the expertise in-house to really analyze the findings, or you don't have the resources to actually implement the strategies recommended,
Yeah.
then all that money you spent up front on the research, it's basically wasted. The data just sits there gathering dust. So it's not just getting the data, it's having the capacity to turn it into action.
Okay, so we know what drives up costs and when the ROI might not be there. Let's shift to solutions. How can businesses, maybe especially smaller ones or those on tighter budgets, make sure they're getting real value from market research?
Well, the article really hammers home the importance of defining your research objectives very clearly from the get-go. What specific questions are you trying to answer?
Right, be specific.
Exactly. Are you trying to understand unmet customer needs? Spot emerging trends in your niche. Analyze your competitors' strengths and weaknesses. Having that laser focus keeps the research on track and ensures the data you collect directly tackles your core business goals.
That sounds like basic common sense, but I bet it's easy to skip that step when you're eager to just get some data.
It really is.
For those smaller budgets, the article mentions some really interesting cost-effective alternatives to those big firms, like internal surveys, using publicly available data, even free online tools. What makes those viable options?
Their accessibility is key. Tools like Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, even the free versions, have surprisingly good features for creating and sending out surveys to get direct feedback. And social media platforms, they often have built-in polling features now that can give you quick, really low-cost insights into what your audience is thinking right now.
And it seems like just narrowing your focus could also be a big cost saver. Instead of trying to understand the entire market, maybe just concentrating on a specific niche or a smaller customer segment makes it more manageable and affordable.
Precisely. If you narrow your scope, you can often get deeper, more directly applicable insights from the people who really matter most to your business. You avoid the cost of casting a super wide net.
That makes sense.
And for companies that do want more formal research, the article suggests looking into strategic partnerships, maybe firms offering scalable solutions, or using data tools that can adapt as your needs change. It's about being flexible.
Now, beyond the obvious price tags from, say, a research firm, the article also brings up some hidden costs, things we might overlook. What are some of those?
One really big hidden cost is just the sheer time investment your team needs to analyze and interpret the data once you have it.
Right, the internal time.
Yeah. Research isn't just gathering info. You need skilled people or the right tools to make sense of it all and turn it into actual strategies. If that internal process is slow or takes up a lot of staff hours, that definitely adds to the real cost.
That's a really sharp point. It's not just the invoice, it's the hours your own team spends. And then there's this idea of opportunity cost,
Yeah.
what you're not doing because you're focused on the research.
Exactly that. If you're pouring significant time and resources into market research, that might mean less focus on, well, running the business day to day, less time on customer service, or maybe delaying crucial product development. If the research doesn't end up giving you a strong return, you haven't just spent the research money, you've also potentially missed out on other valuable opportunities for growth or improvement.
Okay, so let's dig a bit deeper into those cost-effective alternatives you mentioned. The article specifically calls out free tools like Google Analytics. How can website analytics actually give us useful market research insights?
Google Analytics is incredibly powerful because it tells you so much about the people already interacting with you online. You can see where visitors come from geographically, how long they stay on pages, what content they like the most, even basic demographics.
Okay.
So these metrics, visitor origin, time on site, bounce rate, popular content, they offer this real-time pulse on your audience's interests and behavior, all without a big financial outlay.
That's pretty amazing, really, all that data just there. And then the article also highlights social media platforms, not just for cat pictures, apparently.
Definitely not. Platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Yeah.
they have their own analytics dashboards, often free for business accounts.
Right.
These give you detailed info on your followers' demographics, how they engage with posts, what content performs well. It's invaluable for understanding your specific target market's preferences, behaviors, maybe even spotting trends just within your audience.
And that direct interaction on social media seems super valuable for quick, low-cost feedback too, right? Like running polls or just asking questions.
Absolutely. You can get immediate reactions to new ideas, gauge how people feel about your brand, understand their problems, just by asking directly in polls, surveys, or even the comment sections.
Hmm.
Plus, just keeping an eye on relevant hashtags and conversations in your industry can reveal broader trends, customer concerns, and even what your competitors are up to. It's like passive research.
So, yeah, definitely some good ways to gather insights without breaking the bank. However, the article also warns about some common traps with these lower-cost methods. What are the main challenges we need to watch out for?
Probably one of the biggest challenges is getting a truly representative sample. Free tools often lack the sophisticated targeting or the sheer reach of paid options,
Yeah.
meaning your data might be skewed. It might not accurately reflect your broader target market. For instance, if you only survey your existing social media followers, their opinions might be very different from potential customers who don't follow you yet.
Okay. So the results might not be reliable for the bigger picture. It's like only asking your close friends their opinions, not necessarily representative.
Exactly that. And the article also notes that the quality and depth of data from low-cost methods might not be as robust or reliable as professional research.
How so?
Well, free survey tools might limit the types of questions you can ask or the kind of detailed analysis features they offer. They might cap the number of responses. You could end up with a lot of surface-level data that's actually quite hard to turn into meaningful action, especially if you don't have strong data interpretation skills in-house.
That makes a lot of sense. You save money up front, but then you might struggle to actually figure out what the data means or what to do with it.
Precisely.
Now, this was an interesting little nugget in the article mentioning the U.S. Census Bureau as a source of free data. Sounds like a gold mine just sitting there.
Yeah.
Why is that so valuable?
It really is. The Census Bureau offers this huge volume and breadth of demographic data, economic stats, industry reports, all publicly available, completely free.
Wow.
It can be an absolutely invaluable resource for understanding broad market trends, shifts in consumer behavior, key economic indicators, all without spending a penny on proprietary reports.
So if we try to bring this all together,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like the main message is, look, in-depth market research can be really beneficial, but you absolutely have to weigh that potential upside against the costs involved.
Right. It's a balancing act.
And whether you have a big budget or you're working with, much less, the real value comes from making sure your research is super targeted, directly relevant to your business goals, and actually leads to clear, actionable insights you can use.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about how much you spend, but how strategically you approach it. Does the knowledge you gain actually help you make better business decisions? That's the key question.
So thinking about your own situation, what specific strategies we've talked about today might actually apply well in your context? Or maybe think about a time when market research really delivered for you, or perhaps when it kind of fell flat. It really just boils down to being thoughtful, being strategic about how you gather information, and then how you use it to make smarter choices. And with that thought, that brings us to the end of this deep dive.